My parents lived rent-free in my guest house. Then they hosted a roast for me on my birthday. My dad joked, "She can't even cook, but she thinks she's a real adult." A week later, I gifted the house to my ex's mom, the one they hate. I'm 38, recently divorced, and I own a modest home in Santa Rosa, California. It's not big, but it's mine. There's a detached guest house out back that I fixed up myself. I poured love and money into that property. It was supposed to be an office and maybe an Airbnb one day. Instead, it became my parents' full-time residence. They're in their 60s, Leonard and Margot. Not elderly, not helpless, just difficult. They got evicted from their rental almost 4 years ago due to some messy property mismanagement, and I did what I thought was the decent, adult thing. I offered them my guest house rent-free while they got back on their feet. 3 years later, they were still there. And in that time, they managed to criticize almost every aspect of my life. Let me be clear, I didn't expect them to thank me every day. But I didn't expect the constant undermining, either. They commented on my weight, "You still doing that vegetarian thing?" My job, working from home isn't real work, and my divorce, "You gave up too easily on Arlo." I kept the peace. I played the good daughter. I thought, maybe if I'm patient enough, they'll see that I'm not a failure. Maybe they'll finally be proud of me. I should have known better. The birthday party was their idea. My 38th. I wasn't planning anything big, just dinner with a couple friends. But they insisted. "You only turn 38 once," my mom chirped. "Let us host it. We'll invite a few people." They made it sound sweet. And I fell for it. When I arrived, the backyard was filled with their friends, retirees from their church group, a couple of my dad's old coworkers. People I barely knew. No one my age. Not one of my actual friends was invited, because apparently they didn't RSVP in time, even though I had no idea they were even invited. I played along. Smiled. Ate the food they prepared, none of which I could actually eat. Listened politely. Then came the speeches. My dad stood up, a glass of cheap white wine in his hand, and tapped it with a fork. "Let's say a few words about our dear Marin." I froze. I already knew it wasn't going to be good. My dad has this way of joking that's less funny and more like peeling your skin off with sarcasm. 38 years old, he started. "She can't even cook, but she thinks she's a real adult now." Laughter. "Seriously though, Marin's doing great. She's got a cute little house, a job where she sits on Zoom all day, and, best of all, she let her old parents move in, because she knows she's not ready to have kids of her own." More laughter. Even my mom smirked and raised her glass. I wanted to disappear. I didn't laugh. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, plate in hand, wondering how the heck I had ended up being the punchline at my own birthday. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next one. I kept replaying it in my head, thinking about how normal it had all felt, until it didn't. I realized they had never really respected me. Not as a kid. Not now. Letting them live there wasn't kindness in their eyes, it was weakness. They felt entitled to it. They never once said thank you. Never once offered rent. They criticized everything from my lack of decor to the hummingbird feeder that I put outside my kitchen window because it attracted bugs. And what burned most? They treated Doreen, my ex's mom, like dirt. Called her nosy. Meddling. Too opinionated. But she was the one who taught me how to cook. She brought soup when I was sick. She came to my college graduation when my parents couldn't be bothered to take time off work. She never stopped checking on me, even after Arlo and I split. And it wasn't a messy breakup, we just grew apart. But Doreen never stopped being family. So I made a decision. I talked to my lawyer. The guest house was on the same parcel, but I had it redrawn. Legally subdivided. I filed the paperwork, paid the taxes, and transferred ownership of the guest house to Doreen. It was mine to give. So I gave it to someone who actually loved me. Then I printed a 30-day notice. Sat my parents down. My mom thought I was announcing an engagement. She even asked if I was pregnant. I told her I had other news. "You're evicting us," she said, eyes wide. "No," I said. "I'm transferring the house. It no longer belongs to me. You'll need to move." "To who?" she demanded. I didn't answer right away. I just placed a copy of the deed on the table. My dad grabbed it and read the name. His face turned a deep shade of purple. "Doreen? Are you out of your goddamn mind?" I said nothing. I just stood. My dad stood so fast his chair scraped back and nearly tipped over. His fists were clenched at his sides, the paper crumpled in his hand. My mother's jaw hung slightly open like she couldn't fully register what she was seeing. "She's not family," my mom finally said. "She's Arlo's mother. You're rewarding her for raising the man who left you." I looked her dead in the eyes. "She was the only person who showed up for me when you didn't. Arlo didn't leave me. We ended things together, peacefully. And even after that, she never turned her back on me. Unlike some people." "Don't be dramatic," my dad muttered, still glaring at the paper. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The power in the room had shifted, and they felt it. "You've got 30 days, I said. The deed has been signed. The house is hers. If you need help finding somewhere to go, I'm happy to give you Kellen's number." They sputtered, tried to throw guilt at me, said things like "You're abandoning your family, we sacrificed so much for you, we're your parents, we should come first." But something had snapped in me after the birthday party. All the little micro wounds of my life, dismissed accomplishments, emotional neglect, the heavy lifting of always trying to be enough, had scabbed over, hardened, and made me immune to their particular brand of manipulation. "I have given you 3 years of free housing," I said, voice steady. "You've paid no rent. No utilities. You insult my friends, my job, my home. You hosted a party for me that was more of a public shaming. I don't owe you another thing." My mom's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind that come from heartbreak, more like the kind a person squeezes out when they realize their control is slipping. "We're old. We don't have anywhere else to go." "You do," I said. "You just don't want to ask for help from anyone but me." "That's not my fault." They didn't speak to me for 2 weeks after that. Which, honestly, was a relief. During that time, I helped Doreen prepare for her move. She was cautious at first, didn't believe I was serious. "You can't just give me a house, sweetheart," she said on the phone. "That's not how life works." "I can," I said. And I did. I drove her out to see the guest house. Her eyes lit up when she stepped inside. She walked through slowly, trailing her fingers along the doorframes, the windowsills. She turned in the kitchen, blinking rapidly, and said, "I've never had a place that was mine." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Well, now you do." She didn't try to fuss or guilt me into letting her decline. She just hugged me and said, "I'll take good care of it. And of you." Meanwhile, back at the main house, I'd hear my parents packing at odd hours. Muffled arguments. One morning I came outside and saw my dad angrily throwing out a box of mismatched Tupperware into the trash bin, muttering curses under his breath. They hadn't asked me for help. I hadn't offered. On the 29th day, my mom knocked on my back door. She was holding an envelope. "It's our forwarding address," she said. "In case you decide to come to your senses." I took it without a word. Inside, scribbled on a yellow sticky note, was the name of a motel near the freeway and a room number. A temporary solution, clearly. But it wasn't my problem anymore. They left the next morning without saying goodbye. I watched them drive off through the blinds of my kitchen window. My dad's old sedan kicking up a cloud of dust as it pulled out of the gravel driveway. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel regretful either. What I felt was something more foreign, more still, peace, maybe. Or the beginning of it. Later that afternoon, Doreen moved in. She brought boxes neatly labeled. A little teapot collection. Fresh curtains she'd sewn herself. A small green sofa. Books, puzzles, house slippers. She fit into that space like she'd always belonged there. That first night, I brought over dinner, stuffed bell peppers and a bottle of wine. We sat on the little porch and watched the sun go down, the soft Sonoma County breeze rattling through the bamboo fencing. "You sure you're okay?" she asked, reaching over and patting my knee. "I'm better than okay," I said. She smiled. "You've always deserved more than what they gave you." That got me. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom and let myself cry for a few minutes. Not because I was sad, but because I finally felt safe enough to let it out. The next few weeks were quiet. Blissfully so. My house felt like mine again. I could walk into my kitchen without hearing unsolicited commentary about how I organized the spice rack. I wasn't constantly monitoring the energy in the backyard. There were no more helpful notes left on my door about mowing the lawn or how I was overwatering the hibiscus. And in the guest house, Doreen made it a home. She planted herbs in the little garden bed. Lavender, thyme, basil. She started hosting low-key knitting afternoons with some of the neighborhood ladies. They loved her. Everyone did. The neighborhood had gone from a tension zone to a tiny haven. Even the hummingbirds came back. One Saturday morning, about 3 weeks after Doreen settled in, I stepped outside with my coffee and found her on a step stool, hanging a little wind chime by the porch. It tinkled softly in the breeze, nothing loud or clunky, just a gentle sound that seemed to fit the calm vibe she brought with her. "You sure you're not overdoing it?" I asked with a small grin. She chuckled. "Oh please. I haven't had a place where I could put a nail in the wall in over 20 years. Let me have my fun." She hopped down and wiped her hands on her apron, the one with little lemons on it. I sat on the porch swing while she watered her herbs. This became a thing. Mornings with Doreen. Afternoons when I'd hear her hum along to old jazz standards coming from the window. The house, her house, felt warm in a way it never had under my parents'. She respected my space. Didn't intrude. But she was there. If I brought over soup, she'd offer fresh bread in return. She made it easy to want to be around her. About a month after my parents moved out, my brother Kellen called. He never really reached out unless he needed something, so I debated letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity won out. "Marin," he said, "no greeting. Are you seriously telling people you evicted Mom and Dad to give their place to Doreen?" I blinked. "Their place?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "You know what I mean." I took a breath. I didn't evict them. I transferred ownership of my guest house to someone who actually cares about me. They had 30 days notice, and they left. That's it. You humiliated them. "No," I said, calmly. "They humiliated me. On my birthday. In my own backyard. After 3 years of freeloading and constant put-downs. You're being spiteful. Kellen, they've never lived with you." There was a pause. Then, bitterly, "They're trying to live with me now." That almost made me laugh. Almost. "I'm sure Mom's already rearranged your fridge," I said. "Give it a week before she starts passive-aggressively complaining about your girlfriend's perfume." He exhaled heavily. "This isn't funny." "I didn't say it was," I said. "But it's not my problem anymore." And I meant it. I had spent my entire life feeling like I was responsible for the emotional well-being of people who didn't even like me. Not really. They liked control. They liked the version of me that nodded and didn't talk back. But they didn't love me. For once, I wasn't taking that on. In the weeks that followed, I started making small changes to the main house. New curtains. Repainted the kitchen cabinets. I started hosting dinners again, real ones, with people I actually liked. I even got back into gardening, something I hadn't touched since my parents moved in, and started criticizing the messy look of native plants. One evening, I had a few coworkers over. We sat out back, wine glasses in hand, music playing low, candles flickering. Doreen stepped out at one point to bring over a batch of warm blueberry muffins, just because she'd made extra. After she left, my friend Celia leaned in and whispered, "She's adorable." "Wait, is that your ex's mom? The one you mentioned?" I nodded, smiling. "Yeah. That's her. She seems more like your mom than your real one." "Exactly." I knew through a few distant family grapevines that my parents weren't doing great. They'd stayed at a motel for a bit before eventually landing with Kellen. But that didn't last long. His girlfriend, Nadia, was apparently done after Margot made a comment about her parenting in front of her 5-year-old. They tried to reach out once or twice after that. Vague texts from my mom like, "I hope you're happy or you'll regret this one day," but I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. I just didn't owe them anything anymore. I talked to my therapist about it, trying to untangle the guilt that still clung in the corners. She asked me something that stuck with me: what if their unhappiness isn't your failure, but their consequence? That's when it really clicked. On a quiet Tuesday morning, I was outside trimming the bougainvillea when Doreen came by with her usual morning mug of tea. "I was thinking," she said, settling into one of the chairs. "Maybe we could turn that little patch behind the shed into a vegetable garden. You know, tomatoes, squash, maybe even zucchini if we're feeling wild." I looked up from the clippers. "You want to garden with me?" She grinned. "Unless you're too grown up to play in the dirt with an old lady." I laughed, actually laughed. "You're not old." She raised a brow. "Tell that to my knees." And just like that, my backyard, once a place of tension, resentment, and discomfort, felt alive again. It was still quiet. But a good kind of quiet. The kind that leaves room for possibility. Not the quiet you brace for before a storm. The quiet you get when the storm has passed. A few weeks after that conversation about the garden, Doreen and I dug our hands into the soil behind the shed. It was hard clay, dry and reluctant, but we worked side by side, breaking it up, mixing in compost, laying out the rows. She brought a kneeling pad and insisted on doing more than she probably should have. I didn't argue. She wasn't just planting vegetables, she was planting roots. In a space that had always felt like it belonged to everyone but me, I was finally building something that was mine, on my terms, with someone who gave instead of took. The transformation of the property didn't go unnoticed. Neighbors who hadn't spoken to me in years began waving again. Some stopped by. A retired couple from down the road brought over some potted marigolds and a tray of brownies for the lady in the little house who waves every morning. Another neighbor asked if Doreen was my aunt. I told them, something like that, and smiled. One Saturday, while I was repainting the fence, I saw a familiar car drive slowly past the house. I didn't need to see the license plate, I recognized the grimace behind the windshield. Leonard. He drove by once. Then again, about an hour later. Didn't stop. Didn't get out. Just drove by real slow, staring. I didn't wave. I didn't flinch. I just kept painting. He never came back after that. Later that summer, I got a letter in the mail from my mom. Not a text. Not a voicemail. A handwritten letter. Sloppy cursive. 4 pages. The first page was a mixture of passive aggression and pity. By page 2, the tone had changed, accusatory, venomous. How I had betrayed my own blood, how Doreen had poisoned me against them. How, one day, I'd realize I threw away the people who made me. I didn't finish reading it. I folded the letter, tucked it in a drawer, and poured myself a glass of wine. Doreen was over, putting together a peach cobbler, and I handed her the letter without a word. She read the first few lines, chuckled softly, and said, "You know, some people will never understand that love isn't a debt." That sentence hit like truth always does, simple, sharp, undeniable. The garden thrived. We had more zucchini than we knew what to do with. We gave baskets of produce to neighbors, made preserves, hosted a tiny end-of-summer dinner with garden-to-table dishes. Doreen made a chilled cucumber soup that people still ask about. That night, after everyone left, we sat out on the porch with tea. "You did good, Marin," she said. "You did something a lot of people can't." "What's that?" I asked. "You walked away without burning it all down. You just closed the door and started building somewhere else." I looked around. At the string lights. At the wildflowers we planted. At the small stone path we made with broken pieces of old bricks my dad once piled behind the shed and called garbage. "Maybe that's the best kind of revenge," I said. "Just living well." She smiled, reached over, and squeezed my hand. "Exactly. I haven't spoken to my parents in nearly a year now. They tried to make a scene at Thanksgiving, sent a group email to extended family about how cold-hearted I had become, how I turned their own home against them. A couple cousins reached out tentatively, but after I shared the full story, photos, dates, the birthday video that someone captured on their phone, most people quietly dropped it. Even Kellen eventually sent a text that said, "I didn't get it before. I do now." That was all. We don't talk much, but it was enough. It's spring again now. The garden's blooming. Doreen and I added a bench beneath the orange tree, and sometimes we sit there at sunset, watching the light fall over the fence and listening to the bees dance between flowers. I look at the guest house, her house, and I feel nothing but peace. No guilt. No hesitation. She waters the roses like she's always belonged there. Because she has. And me? I finally stopped asking for love from people who didn't know how to give it. I stopped waiting to be seen by people who were blind to who I really am. They made their choices. And I made mine. Some revenge doesn't need fire and fury. Sometimes, it just needs a deed transfer, a raised garden bed, and a woman who finally decided her self-worth wasn't negotiable. And if my parents ever wonder why I did what I did, all they have to do is remember the punchline at that birthday party. "She can't even cook, but she thinks she's a real adult." Turns out, I'm more than an adult. I'm finally free.